All right, welcome back. So this quick little tutorial video is all going to be about establishing relationships. And when we're working inside of a database, we try to create relationships between tables. Now, many times it's going to go ahead and be a primary key in one table that connects to a foreign key in another table. And essentially what that means is that we have two common fields that are being collected within tables that we can connect together in order to make them stronger. And so what some of those relationships will do will allow us to basically cross-reference the other table to ensure that the data is accurate in both tables and that we can't just kind of make things up willy-nilly. So in this example here, so I have a sample database that I've been working on here. So on this table here, on my orders table, I have the order ID, which is the primary key here, sales date, customer ID, product, the price that they paid, and then the employee that made the sale. Now, there are two additional IDs in this table that aren't primary keys, so customer ID and employee ID. So if we look over onto our employees table here, you can see here that we have all of this information on here that we can see. This is now a primary key on this table, just like on our customers here, we have a primary key here as well. So in order to make these relationships, you go here to database tools. We can then go ahead and click on relationship. Now I have these pre-made already as after a working example here in class. But again, just a really quick here to talk about them, you can see the connection has been made here. So this customer ID is linked to this customer ID. And so what these little symbols mean is that this is a one-to-many relationship. That means that there can only be one unique customer ID in this table, but it can appear multiple times in this table. It should make sense because customers often come back and replace orders or place new orders. We would hope that a customer is returning to our company to keep making orders for their company. And then same thing on this side here, we have an employee ID, right? No two employees can go ahead and share the exact same ID, but an employee can make multiple sales. So we've gone ahead and made these connections. Now, not every project will you have this kind of clear cut, really quick relationship. And I've seen some students try to make connections just to make relationships. One common one that I've seen on this last project here was that they were trying to take last name and trying to link it up to another last name. Just because they share the same field doesn't mean that the data is the same. If you think about it, how many people have the last name of Smith or Johnson or any other Anderson? Anything that's really, really common, there's going to be many people that share the same last name. So there won't be a unique connection between those two sets of data. Now, in the project that you're working on, there is the ability to add more fields to tables so that way we can make these strong connections. And so I'll show you real quick how to go ahead and build these. So if you don't have a dialog box that pops up, you can click Show Table. Now, again, when we start to get more in depth into this, not only can we add our tables, but eventually we'll be able to go ahead and add our queries in here too to make those connections between not only our queries, which are essentially questions to our database, but then also with our tables. So if you just go ahead, you can click Add and bring in all three of your tables. Now, to go ahead and build relationships up here on the top left, you'll have an Edit Relationship option. And you'll go ahead and click Create New. And now it doesn't really matter what your left table name is versus your right table. The biggest issue is that we're trying to go ahead and select the common field. So in this case here, I'm going to take my customer ID, and I know there's a customer ID on my order table. It is already a relationship that I have built. So I'm just going to go ahead and click Yes to go ahead and rebuild this. But so now you can see here that they're connected. And one thing that you'll notice that is likely different here is that I have enforced referential integrity check. Now you can only do this when you're connecting a primary key on one table to a foreign key on another. And what this does is it prevents us from just being able to make up customer IDs when we're adding them to our orders table. So it stops us from being able to place an order, and it says, whoa, 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 we don't have that customer inside of our customer table. So please make sure that you go add our customer to our table before you can proceed with placing orders for them. So essentially, we have to build a profile for our customer before we can actually enter their orders. And this is going to be the same thing then for our employee ID as well, too. If we don't have our employee in our employee database, essentially, there's no way that we can link that they've sold anything because they don't exist in our employee table. And that's essentially the long and short of how these relationships work.